slipping away. So don't let me go, nah, 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 nah. I'm all up in that love haze. So where do we go now, now? Just let me know that I am safe here in your arms. I wanna stay, stay. I'm slipping away. So don't let me go now. Your love is exceptional. It fills me up. It's out of control, out of control. Oh baby, I love the rush. It overflows. It's out of control, out of control. I'm in love. I'm in love. Yeah. I'm slipping away. Yeah. Just like I am dreaming, walking around in this love haze. I wanna stay in this feeling, but let me know that I am safe here in your arms. I wanna stay, stay. I'm slipping away. Oh, so don't let me go now. Your love is exceptional. It fills me up. It's out of control, out of control. But baby, I love the rush. It overflows. It's out of control. Your love is exceptional. It fills me up. It's out of control, out of control. Baby, I love the rush. It overflows. It's out of control, out of control. I'm in love. I'm in love. Deep in love with you, baby, yeah. 'Cause your love is exceptional. Ooh. It's out of control, out of control. It's out of control, but I love the rush, yeah. Out of control, out of control. Oh, it overflows. Ooh, your love is exceptional. It fills me up. It's out of control. But baby, I love the rush. It overflows. It's out of control. Yes, exceptional. It fills me up. It's out of control. Baby, I love the rush. Come on, yeah. Out of control. I'm in love.
This is American Family News. I'm Steve Jordahl. Super Tuesday is here, and most will be focusing on whether Vermont Independent Senator Bernie Sanders can separate himself from former Vice President Joe Biden, or if Biden can cut into Senator Sanders' lead. However, former New York City Mayor Michael Bloomberg is hoping to play spoiler. Fox's Jackie Heinrich is in West Palm Beach, Florida, where Bloomberg will hold a rally later tonight.
Well, former Mayor Mike Bloomberg's not parsing words in his short tour of Florida today. He's saying he thinks the only way he can win the nomination is through a contested convention, something that hasn't happened for decades. And he's also shaking off pressure to consolidate moderate support around former Vice President Joe Biden. Bloomberg also taking shots at Sanders in a stop in Miami's Little Havana, saying that voters here in Florida won't take fondly to someone who's spoken kindly of the likes of Fidel Castro, and also repeating his argument that a Sanders nomination would be toxic.
It's the first time Bloomberg is on the ballot. He opted to skip early voting states like Iowa and New Hampshire to focus on Super Tuesday contests. Mississippi's Republican legislature is trying to restrict the reason women may seek abortions. This after federal courts blocked the time limitations that the state tried to put on the procedure in the past 2 years. Abortion would be prohibited if a woman is seeking the procedure because of race, sex, or genetic abnormality of the baby, under a bill passed by a state House committee on Tuesday. A Tennessee lawmaker wants to make sure the public has a vehicle in which they can exercise a degree of control over what happens at public libraries. AFN's Charlie Butts has the story.
AFN spoke with Tennessee State Representative Andy Holt, who explains that many Tennessee residents are alarmed at events occurring at their local libraries.
The emergence of some activities that are taking place in public libraries across the United States, and now, unfortunately for us in Tennessee, for events that are being held in public libraries here in our own state that would be, in my opinion, unfit for pretty young children.
That is not exclusively just drag queen story hours that have many parents alarmed. Others promote the homosexual lifestyle, and so on. So, he has introduced the Parental Oversight of Public Libraries Act.
It goes through and gives a designation of how a 5-member panel would be elected and maintained, and these individuals would be elected through a process that is separate from the current library oversight committees, which have already been formed here.
Those panels would reign supreme. So, the public would elect them and could hold them accountable if the library approves events such as the Drag Queen Story Hours for children, people who are mostly transgender and homosexual who dress as women and tell stories designed to convince the children that their lifestyle is okay. That in spite of the fact that it is a mental issue called gender dysphoria, which is treatable by trained mental health professionals. I'm Charlie Butt.
The death toll from tornadoes that ripped across Tennessee has climbed to at least 22. The storm struck early Tuesday as families swept. The twisters shredded more than 140 buildings and buried people in piles of rubble and wrecked basements. Lawmakers holding their weekly Senate lunches on Capitol Hill on Tuesday. Vice President Mike Pence and health officials briefed senators on the coronavirus as Congress is working on a multi-billion-dollar supplemental package. Speaking to reporters, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer criticized the president for his handling of the crisis.
While the president spends all his time spreading misinformation, downplaying the significance, blaming people, even latching on to conspiracy theories, it is good that Democrats and Republicans in the House and Senate are working together very quickly, and we all believe that we will have a bill passed by the end of this week.
Democrat fear-mongering and the mainstream media's complicity could be the reason the stock market tanked again on Tuesday. Despite a half-point cut in the prime interest rate by the Fed, many speculated Democrats opposed to Trump are willing to tank the economy and put the country into a panic in order to get an advantage come November. The Dow lost 786 points, the Dow 268, and the S&P 500 was off 86. For American Family News, I'm Steve Jordahl.
Hi, everyone, and welcome. And I'm excited always on the Neil Haley Network to create and develop another show. And I tell you, I love history. And my guest, who's going to have the show again, you guys have been listening on syndication to the Tobacco Wars radio show, and you've been blown away specifically about the stories that Jim has to tell. Well, we're going to learn more about Jim, and we're going to break down on this network more and more about the Tobacco Wars, more and more about trusts, Donald Trump, specifically what's happening in our country today, and how entrepreneurship needs to keep growing. So I'm excited to welcome the program author and entrepreneur Jim Rumford. Jim, thanks for calling. How are you?
I'm very good, Neil. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic,
It's a pleasure
Jim.
to be on your show.
Oh, it's your show, so it's a pleasure for you to be on my network, but it's your show, and we're going to learn about you. Again, the Tobacco Wars radio show. Well, you guys will be able to subscribe to it at one point in time and all that stuff, but let's kind of talk about specifically growing up. Tell us your background growing up as a child.
Well, I grew up in northern Kentucky. I was born in Louisville, Kentucky. The family is from Brooksville, Kentucky, which is in Bracken County, and that's along the Ohio River, about 50 miles upriver from Cincinnati. And the families had tobacco farms. So as a little kid, 4 or 5 years old, as my grandfather Rumford would work the tobacco patch, I would follow along, just walking through the fields, watching him do his work. And so as time went on, I grew up in the elementary schools in northern Kentucky, then in Cincinnati. And then my parents moved to Dayton, Ohio, and I finished up high school up in Dayton, Ohio. So my basic background is raising tobacco. I started working the tobacco patch probably about 8 years old. And back in those days, if you were tall enough, if your feet would reach the pedals of a truck or a car or a tractor, you could drive. And we did. And so all the kids in Bracken County would work the tobacco patch. And we had a lot of fun doing it. They'd be contests on how quick you could cut a stalk of tobacco and how fast you could go down a row of tobacco and cut it and put it on a stick and then transfer it to the barn for curing. So in those days was a lot of fun. I got my first tobacco crop when I was like 10 or 11 years old.
Holy cow, wow.
It was 1/10 of an acre. It was 1/10 of an acre of tobacco. And tobacco was very profitable in those years. Had a 1/10 of an acre of tobacco. I was a sharecropper, which meant I would split the profit with the landowner. And so we went to market, and the product sold for $300. So me and the landowner would split it. So each got $150, but $150 for a 10-year-old kid. This is in the early 50s.
Wow. Yeah.
You're rich.
Entrepreneur.
That's a lot of money.
You're born an entrepreneur. It sounds like. I mean, I guess
yes.
And in so many ways. I mean, 10 or 11, while I was doing a newspaper route at 10 or 11, you were making big deals as a farmer and learning this process at a very young age. Let's talk about work ethic. Being a tobacco farmer, learning it from your family, how much does that instill in you hard work?
It instills everything. And the saying goes, my grandfather Rumford would say, if you've never raised a crop of tobacco, you've never worked a day in your life. Something equally as hard was the way they used to raise cotton. Cotton was also equally as hard. But tobacco was a nice crop. It made people a lot of money. In a little town of Brooksville, Kentucky, or in that county, Bracken County, we had a Ford dealership, a Ferguson dealership, a Chevrolet dealer, a Pontiac dealer, a Ford dealer, and a Chrysler dealer. And the population is only 5,000 people. And the city was the county seat. There was only 600 people in the county seat. But all those dealers was supported by tobacco. So it has a long, long history. You know, tobacco was raised in this country back in the 1600s. The Indians helped cultivate that route. But not only did I have the background of raising tobacco, but when we lived in the city, I would be a sales guy, like selling as a kid, 11, 12 years old. We'd sell Bibles door to door, magazines door to door. I was an usher in a movie house, Lowe's.
Oh, wow.
I was assistant manager in the movie house. I washed dishes at Frisch's. So we did all these things, and then I got a job as a bread man, delivering bread door to door at homes. I was a milkman, and I sold water softeners. I did all that before I was 20 years old. Then I went to work for an international welding company called Utectic, with them for 16 years, and then found the company I'm with now, which is Belzona. We've been with them for 40 years. So it's always been entrepreneur, capitalist type environments, sales, work. The work ethic has to be pretty good. And we've lost that because a lot of those jobs that I had as a kid growing up, they're all gone. Sad day in America. A sad day in America when the kids can't go out there and get jobs, like a paper route. I was also a paper boy. These jobs are vital for young people to learn the work ethic. And now today, as I interview salespeople or interview workers for our application company, we have a hard time finding that work ethic. Now, I was lucky lately. I just hired a guy last week. He's 23 years old. he commented about his generation not having a work ethic, and he assured us that his work ethic was right there where it should be. And as it turned out, so far this week, we found out that he's right on the money. So the work ethic is very, very necessary to grow this country forward. We can't give away free stuff. We can't give away free school, free food, free housing, free this, free that. We have to have capitalism, entrepreneurship anchored in this country, and it really is anchored in this country. So it's vital to our survival as a nation.
You know, Jim,
sound good?
You sound awesome. I mean, it's a great message. And I want to just take us back to the farming just to talk about a day as a tobacco farmer. What time would you get up and what time would you be finished? Because again, it's hard to look at, you talk about these jobs that you and I had, from sales to, cold calling people, to getting the door slammed in our face, to working a long, hard day. And young people don't do that anymore. If they do get a job, they get a fast food job and they laze around on that fast food job, or they work at Starbucks and just talk all the time and really slow down the process instead of really knowing hard work. Explain that that hard work. What time in the morning would you get up, and what time would your day end?
Let's talk about myself and also my dad and my uncles and aunts. Typically, when they were kids growing up, they would be up around 4:30, and in those days we had milk cows, probably 20, 30 head of milk cows. Now, if you're milking cows, you have to do it twice a day, whether you want to or not. You don't have a choice. So the first thing you would do, get up, milk the cows. The next thing you would do is you would then clean up the milk parlor, clean everything up, and get the milk into milk cans for pickup by the milkman that would take it to the dairies for processing. The next thing they would do after that is they would go have breakfast. And then after breakfast, it'd be around between 7 and 8 o'clock. Then you go to the field and you start working the tobacco patch, or you would be planting corn, or you'd be planting wheat. You'd be having your cattle graze in the fields. So there's many, many chores to do every day. You have to feed the cattle. You have to feed the horses. Because in the 40s, this is going back in the 30s, 40s, and 50s, it's all hand work. My grandfather's farm had modern, up-to-date equipment, 1925 style. Well, he used that equipment up until he passed away in 1958. So all that old technology that was used to raise tobacco was what I was raised with. Now, advanced today, the whole world's changed. It's all different now. But it was hard work. And so I was at a lady friend's house of mine down in Kentucky, in Ashland, Kentucky. And her father said to me, says, Jim, where are you from? I said, well, I live up in Dayton, Ohio, but I'm from Bracken County. And he said, oh, you're one of those rich Bracken County farmers, aren't you? You never raised tobacco by hand, did you? I said, what are you talking about? And then he was silent on me, wouldn't talk anymore about it. So then a few 10, maybe 15 years later, I'm at a wastewater treatment plant in Fairborn, Ohio, and the guy asked me where I was from. I said, well, I was raised in Bracken County. He said, oh, you're the rich Bracken County tobacco farmer, huh? You never had to raise tobacco by hand. Now, there's two ways of raising tobacco. One is with horses, tobacco setters, wagons, tractors and horses, what have you. The other way is when you're poor, as they are in eastern Kentucky, and didn't have much revenue from tobacco, but they had to raise it to get cash. Says, here's what we did. You would plow your tobacco bed to plant your tobacco seed. Yeah. Then you would have to rake it out and plant it and cover it with a cotton cover. We had to, by hand, dig up. We'd have to plow it by hand with shovels. And then we would have to rake it like you did. Then we would, you'd have to sterilize the tobacco bed, which meant if we had a tractor or a horse, we'd burn logs of wood, big logs of wood, drag it along the tobacco bed to sterilize the ground. They had to pull their burning logs by hand. So they put a couple of chains around the logs, and then they would pull it by hand. Then they would then pull the plants and set the tobacco. What we would do, we'd have a tobacco setter, and we would drop plants in the ground, and it would water it automatically, and that went pretty well for us. What they would have to do is stick a spade in the ground, open up, put the plant in, and then he said his brother would go to the creek, get 2 5-gallon pails of water, and he would then pour the water into every plant that was put in the ground. And then they would house it. They would, by hand, they had a wagon. They'd shoot that up on an incline. They'd load the tobacco on the trailer, pull it into the barn and hang it, and then strip it and do everything else. So that's what you call working tobacco by hand, which is brutally hard work. So
Jim, I can't imagine this. I mean, when you talk about the work involved in just being a farmer, but when you talk about any type of farming or any type of manual labor that is from sun up to sundown, you're putting all those muscles into it. You have to have attention to detail, especially with tobacco, because again, if you mess it up, if that crop is lost or you make a mistake, that's a lot of lost profits, isn't it?
Yes, it is. But after doing it for a while, you don't make mistakes, and it goes along pretty good. But then you got to contend with the weather. Sometimes a big hailstorm could come along and wipe out the entire crop. But now, if you go back 125 years ago to the tobacco wars, from 1902 to 1908, you had 650,000 people involved. You had 10,000 night riders riding through the night, pulling farmers out of their house, horsewhipping them if they were selling their tobacco to the trust, the American Tobacco Trust, which was a monopoly. And so what they thought they could do is reduce the supply of tobacco and raise the price. Didn't work. But who got involved then was Teddy Roosevelt. And Teddy Roosevelt came through, and he was known as the Trust Buster. And he broke up, the first company he broke up was Standard Oil, John D. Rockefeller, because it was a monopoly. And so in the morning of, I think it was December 11th of 1911, the Supreme Court busted up Rockefeller, gave him 6 months to sell the companies off. That afternoon, James Buck Duke, came into the court, and they said, bust up your company in 6 months. And so he formed about 6 companies, as did Rockefeller. And when they broke those monopolies up, and that's what created different oil companies and different tobacco companies, then everyone blossomed. Everyone made money. Even Rockefeller and Duke made more money by having those companies broken up because they owned stock in those companies than they would have ever done by themselves. Which brings us up to today, where we have all the monopolies out there now. Apple, Facebook, Google, there's many of them. Back 125 years ago, you buy out your competition, and you made your company larger through vertical integration. So they had 4, 5, 6, 7 companies. Today, these companies had 25, 50, 100, 200 different companies to get their vertical integration together where they have a monopoly. Monopolies were outlawed in 1890 by the Sherman Antitrust Act. And it's still in effect today. So these monopolies that work today have been outlawed for all these years. And they've been doing this for 30, 40 years now. Mm-hmm. And so the FBI, the CIA, the FBI and the Justice Department is investigating the monopolies as of today. And I'm sure they're going to have some harsh returns on them. A lot of people are calling that the monopolies be broken up. But the news media really doesn't carry on with that. They don't talk a lot about it. But it's in the workings. I think, like Teddy Roosevelt, Donald Trump is going to be a monopoly buster or a trust buster.
All right,
a lot of history. Now, then, my book, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, Jim, yeah, we could definitely mention the book right now, but we'll go back to the story in our first interview. We're going to talk about a series of interviews, but the book, everyone needs to pick it up. I just finished it up. I enjoyed it. It's such historical, but it also tells a story of where we're going. History cannot repeat itself in so many ways, and if we go back down that road of monopolies again, our country's going to lose a lot of its steam if those monopolies keep growing and certain people keep taking over specific things, and there's no choices to purchase items. There's only a few. There's no more mom and pops. There's no more smaller entrepreneurship. Just the big companies, they're controlling everything.
And you cannot have that in our economy. You can't have that. The monopolies go against capitalism and entrepreneurship. Terrible. And that's what's happened. And so all these monopolies that's being built through vertical integration has created this environment, which is very detrimental to the well-being of the country.
Absolutely. So, Jim,
I look at.
Yeah, sorry. Go ahead, Jim.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I was going to take you back again. You talked about tobacco. We're talking more about Jim Rumford, again, entrepreneur, but everyone needs to pick up his book. It's available on Amazon and all those places, or at thetobaccowars.com, or just Google search Tobacco Wars, and you will find a place that has the book to purchase. And if you go to the website, you can get an autographed copy. But again, we're with Jim Rumford here on the Tobacco Wars radio show. And the thing, Jim, when you talk about hard work, you talked about working the tobacco fields, also having an entrepreneurial piece in tobacco. When you went into other industries before you started your business, because the next episode is going to be more about entrepreneurship, where you took on your business and where it is today, and kind of a discussion and airy basis and relating to tobacco in so many ways, meaning the work ethic. When you went to take on other jobs, what separated you from your peers at work?
Hard work. Everything can be achieved through hard work. When we started this company back in 40 years ago, we worked 7 days a week and probably 12, 14, 18 hours a day, and to get it going. So we worked really hard because we entered into an industry that was really not very well respected or thought highly of. And so we had to sell that program that it was the way to go. Structural adhesives are the way to go. But back then, it was the welding, steel replacement, parts replacements, and that type of thing that drove everything. So I left the welding business and started Belzona, which is manufacturer of structural adhesives. Then what comes along is, let's say, back with the Wright brothers building the airplane, they made it out of wood and canvas. Then the new manufacturers of airplanes decided to go to aluminum, and there was a big fight about that. Oh, it won't work. We need to stay with wood and fabric. Well, they got their way with aluminum. Then comes the new planes of today are carbon fiber. And so we've moved from wood to metal to carbon fiber. Carbon fibers is what's going to drive the country, and plastics. So that's how things like this evolve. But it takes a lot of hard work to make a historic industrial change, or any change for that matter.
Because we got to make an industrial change so that American goods are marketable in the marketplace worldwide, but ultimately aren't going overseas. That's another issue that we're dealing with in our country, right? As much that's shipped overseas because of the taxes that the businesses deal with in the United States.
Well, what happened back, let's say, you had H.W. Bush, then you had Clinton come in. So you had Clinton, then George W. Bush, and George W. Bush, and then Obama. With those 4 terms of presidents, we shipped out of the country 60,000 manufacturing plants that went overseas, mainly into Southeast Asia. Now Trump came in to bring jobs back to America. So far, he's brought back 12,000 manufacturing plants. So we got 48,000 plants that's not there yet. It really threw a wet blanket on the middle class people, on the working population. And so Mr. Trump is bringing back jobs to America by bringing manufacturing plants back to America. But if you look at what's going on now with the virus, that's kind of shutting China down.
Yeah.
Now you have all these companies over there that with supply links into America can't get parts and can't get things going. There are going to be some layoffs. There are going to be some production shutdown. It's hard to say how bad this is going to get. But why would they, smart, good executives, make a decision to offshore their vital parts, vital components that they need to make parts here in America? And that's what they've done. And now they need to bring them back.
So we don't know historically where we're going to go. We don't know where it's going to end up happening. So many interesting insights, Jim, and that's what you have to do is pay attention to what's happening in the economy. If you're an entrepreneur and you're not watching the markets, and you're not watching specifically trends, you're not going to, as an entrepreneur, Jim, you're not going to be able to make the changes that are necessary for your business when those trends happen, right?
Mm-hmm. See, if you have entrepreneurs, which this country really was based on entrepreneurship, capitalism, always has been. You know, Captain John Smith in Jamestown said, "Oh, we're going to have communal property. Everyone's going to work, put the supplies in the stockhouse, and we'll distribute them out." Then they found out that half the population wouldn't work, so they scrapped that ideal and gave each person a plot of land. You're on your own, and that's what changed that. So when you give half your stuff away, half the people will work for it and half the other half won't. Then comes a time when the half that's working for it, they don't want to work for it because they're giving it away. So that changes. Like, you know, in school, ask any kid in school if he's got say a college degree or 2 or 3 college degrees, say, "Well, listen, I'd like to have one of your degrees." He says, "No, I worked for that. You can't have that." Well, it's the same thing with income. The left wants to take our money. They didn't work for it, but they want it. We work for it. We want to keep it. So that divide is still there. It's always going to be there.
All right, so best place to
go. The haves and the have-nots.
Absolutely, Jim. Is the best place to go for information on your book is thetobaccowars.com. And for you and in the company, where's that? What's the website for that to find information on your company?
Oh, our company is rumfordgroup.com.
Okay.
And that's our webpage.
All right. Well, fantastic. Jim, great first episode of the Tobacco's radio show. We're going to go into more and more your decision-making process after tobacco farming and then some of the other jobs you had before starting your company and talk and kind of delve into these things on the show and relate it to tobacco, because ultimately at the end of the day, what your education was from your grandfather and father in tobacco has led to where you are today as an entrepreneur. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes, that's true.
And
it was the founding, the growing up in that era was very, very vital and very important.
Absolutely. And it's just, again, lessons learned. Every industry, there's lessons learned. And I want to have one episode to talk about currently where tobacco is. Again, with all the different things of you can't smoke, you can't do this, blah, 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 blah. And now we're in this process of legalizing marijuana everywhere. That's going to, again, have a relationship to what happened to tobacco. There are going to be the same issues at one point, Jim, and that would be a great topic for the show as well, is when that happens. So I appreciate you calling, and take care.
Yo, it's been great talking to you. Have a good day.
You too. Bye-bye. All right, that was the Tobacco Radio Wars radio show, everyone. I've been a vampire / that kind of fan.
I've been sheltered
since Lost Boys, which again I need to watch again. But go ahead, David, introduce our guest.
Kyla Gordon, well known for the Twilight Saga. I know a very big fan of my daughter, girls in general, but some guys too.
Oh, thanks,
known
Dave.
for their ripped bodies and rarely wearing shirts on the set, and werewolves. And man, this thing was amazing. It just took the world by storm. and we're just honored to have you on the show. Welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks, guys. Thanks for having me. Yeah, it was a crazy.
Anything
time.
I said not true?
No, not at all. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, Twilight doesn't discriminate against any age, so it's okay that you're in your 40s and you're.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad you said that because, I mean, that makes me sound. Again, I watch and stream so many different shows all the time, but again, I was into that and I enjoy it, and it really is a series that started as a book, Dave, as you remember. So again, anything that's a book that's created into a movie or TV series, it's a guaranteed win. People don't understand that, and these talented writers that have written books that have become successful, once they make them into movies or TV shows, they're set, and that's what usually happens. Kiowa, would you agree with me?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Stephanie Meyer is definitely living life very nicely.
Well, we're all older than we used to be. I don't think you're in your 20s anymore. Just how old are you?
Yeah, I turned 30 actually next month.
30? Oh, you're an old guy.
Yeah.
So how's that ripped body? Is it still ripped? Or is gravity taking its hold on you?
I mean, gravity's out, but I mean, you just got to get in the gym to try to combat that. It's all about eating right. You know?
So you look as good as you did as ever, right?
I'm best shape of my life.
There you go.
Hey, you got to be Hollywood.
That's we should all be saying.
Yeah, but Dave, that's not the truth for everybody. But Hollywood, you have to do that, Kiowa, right? You have to always be watching.
Yeah, you got to stay in that. If you want to stay in the game, it's the nature of the beast.
All right, let's start at the very beginning. So when did acting start for you? Did you always have a love for it? Were you one of those child actors that just turned into an adult actor? Tell me all about it.
Shoot, man, I've always loved acting ever since I first saw like my first TV show, you know, growing up. But my mom, first time I remember watching like Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, like the old ones when I was like, like it was a TV show when I was probably 4 or 3.
Wow.
Shoot. Yeah, it was back.
They let you watch that stuff, huh?
Yeah, I mean, I have like 7 or 6 older siblings, so they all watched whatever they wanted. I would just sit there and watch it with them. Yeah, but really, my mom got me into it. She turned me on to it. She was an aspiring actress in the early '90s and all that. And she's done like extra work and things here and there. But it wasn't until I went to church with her when I was 18. And Stephanie Meyer, the writer of Twilight, was my Sunday school teacher. And she told me about a casting call for the next movie, Twilight New Moon. And I was like, what? Oh, yeah, what's up? She's like, yeah, you could play a werewolf. You should go. Okay, whatever, dude. Like, I was such like a slacker in high school. It was just funny.
Wow.
And it just kind of came out of nowhere. It was like, what? Is this like destiny right now? It was crazy. So I just went to this open casting call, huff puff, blew the house down, and like got a call like a month later. My mom comes in my room. She's like, hey, you got that part in Twilight. You know, they want you to play Embry Cole. I'm like, who the heck's that? I didn't even audition for that character.
Did you audition without your shirt?
No, they didn't make me take my shirt off. Yeah, we were objectified.
Wow, hired you sight unseen.
Yeah, they just assumed that I would look fine under the shirt. I mean, I was a skinny little kid, so it's like they put us in like this little camp, wolf camp, so we can get a little more
wolf camp
packed on us. So I gained like 10 pounds of muscle between getting the role and filming. So that was crazy. Yeah.
So your story.
So that's how it all started. I was 19 on.
Wow, that's crazy. Your story to know that your Sunday school teacher, and do you stay in touch with her still, and all that with Stephanie?
I haven't talked to her in a couple of years, but I mean, we used to hang out a lot when we were in the same neck of the woods. But I live out in LA now, and she's still in Arizona. My mom's moved from the area where the church is, so it's like she doesn't go to that same church anymore. But last time I saw her, it was like at one of the premieres. So yeah, we don't really keep in touch that much.
But what a connection! That just proves connections are huge. If you know somebody, That really can
yeah,
get you.
right?
Yeah.
Never know.
It's all about who you know and how they know you.
Right, exactly. Go ahead, Dave. Next question. I think that moved one question out.
I mean, if you know someone and they don't like you, it's not going to help. But
Yeah, so did you know that this was going to be as big as it was when you first started? Did you know that it was going to take the world by storm?
Yeah, because it was right after Twilight. Like, I saw the previews for that. I was like, what the heck?
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah, I remember the book. It was in
Saga.
You know, like, people were like, oh, you should read this. Oh, my gosh. I'm like, oh,
Sequel.
pass, whatever. Yeah, and then all of a sudden, like, that came up, and I was like, oh, wow, the movie just came out. So, like, she invited me to, like, the premiere of the first one before I even got the role. So I was like, wow, this could totally change my life. So, and
You
I got it, and it did. It did change my life. 10 years later, I'm like out here, still doing it, working. So
did you read the books? Did you read the books before you started playing your part? Did you go back and catch up and read the books?
Yeah. So right after I found out about the open casting call, I got like the audio books. So me and my mom and my sisters would just like drive around or sit at home and like listen to them on tape.
That probably got you really excited.
Yeah, I mean the details of like the long muscles. I'm like, cool, dude. Yeah, that's totally me. But yeah, it was pretty cool to like be like, what? I'm gonna be a freaking werewolf. This is crazy. Giant wolves are my forte. You know, I love wolves.
So you had fans coming out of your nose, out of your ears. I mean, they were all over the place.
Oh yeah.
Tell us about some of the fans. I'm sure you had fan mail and some stories about how popular you were in their eyes. Like I said, my daughter, you know, she loved the fantasy, love stories. She loved about werewolves. I mean, you know, it just all came together like a perfect storm, didn't it?
Yeah, it was really like surreal. Like how crazy it all happened. Like I came out to LA, got a manager, and like fan mail would just be sent to his address all the time, and he'd like send it to me. I'm like, what the heck? Like people just asking for an autograph or like just saying how I've inspired them. I was like, wow, that's really humbling. And then I'd like go and do these Twilight conventions around the country where hundreds of fans would just show up just to like get a glimpse and hang out with other fans, you know, and
wow,
that was wild as well. Like just sitting there talking with them, listening to their stories, signing autographs, taking pictures, hours and hours of it. It was wild. And then they had like these vampire balls that they just throw. So you'd go and like have like a little dance party with these fans who'd dress up like they're at a prom. So that was quite an experience.
Wow.
And then like they'd line up for the premieres like nights before, and like I'd come out with my friends and we'd like take an acoustic guitar and just like play them some songs because they're like staying in tents. And so it was like, well, I think I could like, you know, maybe surprise them, and who knows, maybe they'll get a good story out of it. So
were there some real love stories going on with you and some of the cast and crew?
Oh man, no way.
You kid, that's Dave. Gossip.
Me and the boys would just hang.
Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, me and the Wolfpack would just kind of stay secluded because our schedules were like
as wolves do.
Vampires. Yeah. So vampires are like whatever. They're doing their thing. We're doing our thing. We're walking around Vancouver. Once in a while, we would like run into each other, just like, "Oh, dude, what's up? You wanna go?" No, not really, but yeah, we just we kind of terrorized Vancouver for a little bit, but nothing too fascinating.
Neil?
All right, so no, see, Dave, this is great. I love it because Dave is coming out of the woodwork more and more, asking questions. that I love, because I love just to kind of just go back and forth and banter, kind of like when we did it with our guest that you know really well, Dave, but I could do it with anybody. I could talk a leg off of anybody. I'm an extrovert big time. But no, so the thing that you talk about with
there
this,
you go.
those Comic-Cons and those conventions, wow, they're just becoming so popular. They come out all the time, and it's a great way for you to make some extra money, not just off of just the appearance, but merch. Talk about, autographs and pictures, and how you really it can be a good deal, a good extra gig for you when you're in between jobs and stuff, for sure.
Yeah, definitely when you don't want to be doing like a restaurant job in between. You want to focus on your craft, right? Live your life.
Every actor has a second job, right?
I have a 6-year-old daughter. Yeah, right. Yeah, I have a 6-year-old daughter. I got another job right there, like full-time daddy job. So it's hard to just be like, okay, I gotta do acting, and then I gotta do some other job on the side. When it's like, dude, I've already taken enough time to do this one movie, so now I gotta come home and spend as much time as I can with my daughter before I have to go on to the next job.
Oh, how old is your daughter?
She's 6.
Wow, great age.
Yeah. She's in first grade. It's never would have
So
thought.
you're a family man now.
Yeah.
How's that feel?
By the time, it's been amazing. It's been an incredible experience for me. My parents had 8 kids. And by the time they were 30, they had 7. So it's like, wow. I only have one. And I'm like, how did they do it? My parents are insane.
I have 6, so I understand how challenging and crazy it is. But everyone picks up the slack. It might look like, at home it's crazy, but when you guys go out, isn't it true? As a big family, you guys just seem like you're the most normal, because you have to you don't want to separate yourself even more, because everyone's staring at you already, so you don't act up even more, right? When you would go out.
Yeah. Oh my gosh,
for sure.
Those family gatherings can be huge too, 30 or 40.
It was chaotic.
Kids,
grandkids.
And of course, you're not probably old enough to have grandkids, but hey, but just wait, they multiply like rabbits.
God.
So tell me about Roswell. What's up with that?
Oh man, yeah, that's so they brought that show back. It was based off a book series, and it came out in the 90s, and then it left, and now it's back on CW. So the first season aired last year, and I got a chance to be in that, and in the last 2 episodes, and now they brought my character back, which I don't know if I can even. Anyways, there's season 2 coming out March 16th. So yeah, this is like, wow, that's like 3 weeks away.
Tell me about the show. Tell me about Roswell.
So yeah, Roswell, big alien like landmark, right? And so it's a bunch of like alien fans, craziness, all the just novelty of aliens in Roswell. So there's like nuts and conspiracy theorists, and then there's these kids who went to high school together, and this is depicting them 10 years after the fact. And on my side, you have my brother, who's one of the main characters, and we're all a military family, and our dad is like this huge D-bag who's just out to get aliens, and it's like, people don't even know that aliens exist, dude. Chill out. So his whole life he's dedicated to just like thwarting this incoming alien threat that is just basically just what he believes, which there's no proof of, but so I've kind of bought into that, and I'm like his
kind of like X-Files.
Yeah. It's definitely a lot of extra trouble.
So you become one, huh? You caught the bug.
No. I mean, yeah, that'd be dope, but yeah,
it's hard not to.
I've fought in.
Oh, isn't it crazy?
I've fought into that, and I'm all about exterminating the alien threat.
But think about the alien community.
So you're building your fan base now. You got werewolf fan base. You got alien fan base. What's next?
I'm hitting all the genres, man. Zombies. Doing
Zombies.
Yeah, I got a movie called Blood Quantum coming out March 27th, actually.
You got all the bases
I
covered.
don't know if they're doing. Yeah, I don't know if they're doing like a limited here to see what it's going to be like. But in Canada, they have a nationwide release in Canada so far, and a bunch of different territories across the world. But
Well,
we're-
don't
With
worry,
syndication, you're set for life.
Yeah.
yeah, zombies, aliens, and werewolves, and vampires.
No, I was going to
niche.
ask about. We're talking about Roswell for a second. I'm sure being a part of this show, you've looked back and see how many people really believe there are aliens among us, and the whole Area 51 and all of the different things out there. And there's a huge UFO community. I'm sure, have done more research from that since this part.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Did
Yeah,
you want to storm Area 51 like everyone was threatening to do?
I mean, that whole like, it was like a troll thing going on. I was all for it. I love shaking up the world, you know. So I'm just a rebel without a cause sometimes.
So you played a part in that.
I mean, I did like post about it and stuff, but I was never gonna be like, yeah, I'm gonna go out there and see if I can figure it out.
You were their leader.
I'm not that crazy. Yeah. I'm like their
So you didn't get a visit from the FBI or the CIA.
Well, he will now for what he's saying.
Don't laugh.
I wonder what's going to happen.
He's going
to get more in trouble with his current show, or is he going to get in trouble with the FBI and CIA and everything talking about, Area 51? But like I said before, it's funny niche groups that are out there. But the alien UFO community, do you believe there are UFOs amongst us?
I do.
Yeah.
I do believe so. I do believe in the extraterrestrials and all that, but I'm not a nut about it. I mean, I don't think we are the center of the universe. I don't think we're the only living human or like beings out there. So yeah, it's in my mind. I think that there's other things out there.
Yeah, or cyber humans. We just don't know.
Yeah.
Who was here before and who's seated and who breeded and we don't know.
Yeah,
we just don't know.
Who's just disappeared off the face of the earth.
Exactly. And you know what? I think his next part needs to be in the Expanse. He needs to get in the next season of the Expanse. That show is awesome, by the way.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
All right, I should watch that then.
Oh,
tell your
love
agent.
it. You love it. You love it.
Yeah.
All right, Dave. Go ahead. Next question.
All right, dude.
Well, did we talk about your latest projects? I think we might have. Did we miss any?
Yeah, he's got more.
A couple of them. Yeah.
What else do you have? What else is
I
going
got
on?
more in the pipeline, man. Like last year was one of my busiest years, actually. I did a mini series for Netflix and A&E called The Liberator, which I think is coming out in the winter, next winter.
What's
so
that
at the end of the year. It's about World War II. It's about the discovery of U.S. soldiers, comprised mostly Native Americans and Mexican Americans, and like it's basically just like misfits of the country that were like basically they were being either going to be court-martialed or they were being disciplined, and so this dude, Lieutenant Felix Sparks, he goes out and gets all these guys together, creates this crude company to go out to fight in Europe to combat the Nazis. And so it's basically like Band of Brothers reborn, but it's so we shot it all on blue screen, so it's going to be looking like comic book esque, and we're all live action, right? And they got us like painted up all like crazy, looking like comic book characters. So like the rest of it's just going to be like a graphic novel. So it's going to be pretty interesting to see. Depict
more mainline, more normal for you.
yeah. So I get to play this Jeep driver for Felix Sparks, who later becomes a colonel. Cool. Yeah, so it's about his journey. It's like the 500 days of him and his company going through like Italy, and then
this a movie or series?
It's a mini series. It's gonna be on Netflix.
Okay.
So we
always be a
liberate
sequel.
Dachau prison. Yeah. Yeah, the Pacific.
If it takes off.
You'll have to let me know when that comes out and
That's
come back
great.
on this show to tell me just about that, because I will watch it and stream it, and then you can come back and talk about your character
Yeah,
more.
heck yeah,
That'd be
dude.
awesome. I mean, I'm a binge
Yeah.
watching crazy. Right.
World War II.
Yeah, I'm into
Yeah.
that. I'm definitely. All right, Dave. Dave's last question. The reason Dave's on is because he's funny. Dave is, and also the kind of questions he asks. He has no filter at times, especially trying to grab dirt from the Twilight to tell his daughter this is what the relationships are like on set. But Dave also is a caregiver, and that's one reason why he's on the show.
That's what my daughter and I have in common. Right?
And I know that Kiowa is going to be in the book with his caregiving story. So go ahead and ask it, Dave.
Yeah. I'm going to make a book of everyone I interview, so you'll be in it too. So I'm a caregiver. 23 years ago, I'm an old guy, 66 years old body, young mind. And 23 years ago, been married 45 years. 23 years ago, my wife has this headache that turned into a stroke. That she lost her speech, became paralyzed. And normally, that just takes people out, maybe destroys their marriage. But we reinvented ourselves because we have strong faith and we're positive and now we travel the country. My wife still cannot talk, and she still cannot walk, so she's in a power wheelchair. She goes faster than I do, and she speaks through charades and Pictionary, two games I hate, by the way. But we're trying to get through the new normal, and we talk to caregivers because 30% of them actually die before their loved ones do. I didn't even know what a caregiver was. Now I am one, and I've been on 31 TV shows in the morning, and I've spoken at Harvard, NASDAQ, Carnegie Hall, sharing the stage with Suzanne Summers, Martha Stewart, Ice-T, Caitlyn Jenner of all people, and just helping caregivers to stay alive. So my question to you and to every celebrity that comes on the show is, have you thought about caregiving? Because I believe everyone is either going to become one or need one. It's inevitable. Has it already affected your life with some of your family?
Yeah. So my mom had to give some. So her mom passed away a couple years back, and she had dementia, and she had to basically take care of her in the last year, and also her late husband who passed away from cancer. And so I've seen that secondhand, but I myself, the only care I give is to my daughter, which isn't the same, but it's interesting.
Every parent's a caregiver.
Yeah. I'm definitely not opposed to it or anything, but I mean, I have so much left to do and so much left to give, and that if that opportunity arises, I would definitely.
So you've seen your mother go through.
If I had a loved one that I had to take care of for the rest of their life or even my life, I would be there for them.
Sure you would. You've seen your mother go through some stuff. What toll has it taken on her? What scars are left from just being a caregiver? You've probably seen her burn out, and is she recovered from all of that stuff, or is she still kind of working through it?
I mean, it's tough at times. I am not with her enough to say for sure, but she lives in Arizona, and whenever I see her, I think it's her family. She loves her kids. She has 8 of them, as I've told you, and she's gone through so much, but yet she still has such this young vigor in her, and she'll never give up.
How old is
she? She's 61 now.
Oh, that's young for my standards.
Yeah, but she's been through a lot.
So
how many kids?
Active.
How many?
For having 8 kids.
8 kids, yeah.
Having such loss, she's for what she's been through.
She has a caregiver.
Well, I developed a site, caregiverdave.com. Caregivers can go there and get the support they need. It's a membership site. It's got tons and tons of resources, just so they can learn from my mistakes, so they don't have to make their own.
And best place we can find Kiowa on you, where can we go?
If you want to reach me, just, I don't know, send me a DM on Instagram, hit up my page is there. Comment on my pictures, or you can hit me up on Twitter or Facebook. I'm all on there. So Kiowa J. Gordon on Instagram and Circa Kai Gordon on Twitter. You can always reach me there. I'm always down to interact with whoever needs to talk. If you're a fan or if you're a colleague.
So you are approachable and reachable.
Definitely. Yeah,
cool.
yeah.
Love that.
I think so.
Some people just kind of isolate themselves from their fans.
till he gets his next big show.
I don't get it.
And we'll see him on the Academy Awards getting an award, or the Grammy. I'm not Grammys. Oh, maybe the Grammys. I'm just or the Emmys or something. You never know when it's going to happen. And he had one huge big break, but if he continues in this industry at 30, it could be many more. So he just never knows when that next script comes.
A very successful career. You're very fortunate.
Yes,
I'm blessed. That's all I can say.
Yes, you are.
All right, well,
be able to
keep going to church. Remember, God does it all.
Right.
All right, man. Well, thanks for calling. Take care. Good talking to you.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
Great show.
Nice.
Thank you.
All right, take care. It was fun.
Yeah.
All right, bye-bye. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. That was the Caregiver Dave Celebrity segment, everyone. Take care.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Freedom for Addiction segment here on the Neil Haley Show. I'm excited to welcome to the program Reverend Wynn Henderson. Wynn, how are you? And it's great that you're on the show again. I'm glad to talk to you.
Yeah, it's been a pretty day outside today, Neil.
Oh, it's a gorgeous day everywhere. That's so true. Just one of those days in February. I guess we're waiting for spring. But our topic today is one of them that's really most dangerous thing going on, really, when it comes to addiction. And a lot of it's led based on self-medication prophecy. They basically get these medications, and that's painkillers and the opioid use disorder. I had an interview with Ryan Leaf, who was a professional football player, ended up in jail, ended up robbing, ended up everything in this disorder based on specifically enough just taking it to get better from the certain aches and pains. But these are so addictive, aren't they?
Absolutely, Neil. And it's easy to fall into the trap of too much medication. One of the most common reasons that people go to doctors is for relief of pain. And there are a number of different drugs that a doctor could use for that complaint of pain, but maybe about 20% of the people will get medication that's called an opioid. And an opioid is a narcotic. These opioids are made from opium, which comes from the poppy plant. Morphine and codeine are the two that are natural products of the opium, but they have man-made versions, which include fentanyl, heroin, hydrocodone, hydromorphine, methadone, oxycodone, imipyridine. Some of the more common ones, but there's a lot of.
Yeah, and when we talked about before on this program, and I've talked about on my show, there are what is the basic problem with taking opioids? Because we talked about specifically enough, and you could kind of tell us this straight out. This is such a horrible addiction, and everyone is offered this. It's if you have certain aches and pains, you say you have a back pain, you have neck pain, you have aching knee, or just really you're just suffering in pain, you just go there and they'll prescribe them easily. But what's the basic problem with taking these opioids?
Well, in the past, doctors did give them out a lot easier than they do today. And we have a whole big discussion about drug companies trying to push their product to make money, and the doctors not being totally educated on what could happen when they give a lot of narcotics, but it's tightening up quite a bit. But it's generally safe for you to take these products that's prescribed by your doctor. But in addition to taking them, they can give you relief from the pain, but also they can give you euphoria, the feeling of well-being and the feeling of getting high. Now, this effect could lead you to misuse the drug or take it in a way that your doctor didn't intend. You might take a higher dose than prescribed, take someone else's prescription. You might do that even for a legitimate problem like pain, or you might just take it to get high if you know what an opioid would do.
Wow. It's when you talk about all those things, it's just terrible. It's and how prevalent is the opioid use disorder?
Well, I have figures from 2015. The figures kind of lag behind a little bit, but approximately 2 million Americans had substance abuse disorder related to opioid medications. And today, a few years later, it's significantly higher than that. And for years, we used terms like opioid abuse, drug dependence, drug addiction interchangeably. But the guidelines doctors use to diagnose these issues no longer contain the terms abuse or dependence, generally speaking. Your doctor will look for symptoms if he thinks you have an opioid use disorder. And let me give you those symptoms.
Okay.
Here's what your doctor's going to be trying to find out from you. Are you using more of the drugs or using them longer than intended? Do you have an ability to control or cut down your use or not? Are you spending lots of time finding those drugs and then recovering from the effects of them after you use them? You have a strong desire or urge to use. Do you use despite legal or social problems that develop? Are you stopping or cutting down on important activity because you're taking the drugs? Do you use them sometimes while doing something dangerous like driving a car or a boat, flying an airplane? Do you use them despite having physical or mental problems? Are you becoming tolerant?
This is American Family News. I'm Steve Jordahl. Super Tuesday is here, and most will be focusing on whether Vermont Independent Senator Bernie Sanders can separate himself from former Vice President Joe Biden, or if Biden can cut into Senator Sanders' lead. However, former New York City Mayor Michael Bloomberg is hoping to play spoiler. Fox's Jackie Heinrich is in West Palm Beach, Florida, where Bloomberg will hold a rally later tonight.
Well, former Mayor Mike Bloomberg's not parsing words in his short tour of Florida today. He's saying he thinks the only way he can win the nomination is through a contested convention, something that hasn't happened for decades. And he's also shaking off pressure to consolidate moderate support around former Vice President Joe Biden. Bloomberg also taking shots at Sanders in a stop in Miami's Little Havana, saying that voters here in Florida won't take fondly to someone who's spoken kindly of the likes of Fidel Castro, and also repeating his argument that a Sanders nomination would be toxic.
It's the first time Bloomberg is on the ballot. He opted to skip early voting states like Iowa and New Hampshire to focus on Super Tuesday contests. Mississippi's Republican legislature is trying to restrict the reason women may seek abortions. This after federal courts blocked the time limitations that the state tried to put on the procedure in the past 2 years. Abortion would be prohibited if a woman is seeking the procedure because of race, sex, or genetic abnormality of the baby, under a bill passed by a state House committee on Tuesday. A Tennessee lawmaker wants to make sure the public has a vehicle in which they can exercise a degree of control over what happens at public libraries. AFN's Charlie Butts has the story.
AFN spoke with Tennessee State Representative Andy Holt, who explains that many Tennessee residents are alarmed at events occurring at their local libraries.
the emergence of some activities that are taking place in public libraries across the United States, and now, unfortunately for us in Tennessee, for events that are being held in public libraries here in our own state that would be, in my opinion, unfit for pretty young children.
That is not exclusively just drag queen story hours that have many parents alarmed. Others promote the homosexual lifestyle, and so on. So, he has introduced the Parental Oversight of Public Libraries Act.
It goes through and gives a designation of how a 5-member panel would be elected and maintained, and these individuals would be elected through a process that is separate from the current library oversight committees, which have already been formed here.
Those panels would reign supreme. So, the public would elect them and could hold them accountable if the library approves events such as the Drag Queen Story Hours for children, people who are mostly transgender and homosexual who dress as women and tell stories designed to convince the children that their lifestyle is okay. That in spite of the fact that it is a mental issue called gender dysphoria, which is treatable by trained mental health professionals. I'm Charlie Butts.
The death toll from tornadoes that ripped across Tennessee has climbed to at least 22. The storm struck early Tuesday as families swept. The twisters shredded more than 140 buildings and buried people in piles of rubble and wrecked basements. Lawmakers holding their weekly Senate lunches on Capitol Hill on Tuesday. Vice President Mike Pence and health officials briefed senators on the coronavirus as Congress is working on a multi-billion-dollar supplemental package. Speaking to reporters, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer criticized the president for his handling of the crisis.
While the president spends all his time spreading misinformation, downplaying the significance, blaming people, even latching on to conspiracy theories, it is good that Democrats and Republicans in the House and Senate are working together very quickly, and we all believe that we will have a bill passed by the end of this week.
Democrat fear-mongering and the mainstream media's complicity could be the reason the stock market tanked again on Tuesday. Despite a half-point cut in the prime interest rate by the Fed, many speculated Democrats opposed to Trump are willing to tank the economy and put the country into a panic in order to get an advantage come November. The Dow lost 786 points, the Dow 268, and the S&P 500 was off 86. For American Family News, I'm Steve Jordahl.
Absolutely listening to the George Espenlaub Show, coming to you live from the Funny Farm. Now, with no further ado, here comes Georgie.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Thank you. Wow. I always liked that fella out there that says, woo. I don't know why, but I've always liked that. Over the years, I've just grown right fond of that fellow that says, woo. Anyhow, come on, Espenlaub, get it going here, get it right, and mosey on. Wow, you're listening to the George Espenlaub Show, coming to you live from the Funny Farm in a place called Our World. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, it is Our World, and as you know, this is live from the Funny Farm radio studios, and This is a place where reality and fantasy are intertwined, and none of us here knows the difference, and we don't really care. We don't have a tangible address. We never did. We don't, and as far as I know, we never will. We don't care what the address is, if there is any. All we know is that we live here, and we love it. Many have come, but few have left. Thank you for taking the time to tune in with us tonight. Whether you're down the street, around the corner, across America, or somewhere around this great big world, we're delighted to have you. I hope that we can bring a smile to your face and maybe even make you laugh. I don't know what you're going through. I don't know the valley that you're going through. I don't know the heartaches or the problems that you're facing, but we just want to bring a smile to your face, maybe lift your spirits for a little while, and hope that you can get through what you're going through right now. We've got a great program scheduled for you tonight. We're going to take you into a live stream show that we did, I think it was on Friday, with Christina Laster and Ed Temple. A tremendous show. In fact, we had over 3,200 views, and people still viewing it. And I would encourage each and every one of you, if you haven't been to the George Espenlaub Show page on Facebook, just go to Facebook, the George Espenlaub Show. There you can see all of our previous live shows, live videos that we have done since October. Tremendous shows from people in all walks of life, different matter, different material, but each and every one of them has been unique and have been thrilling, and we have had great success. And I want to thank our audiences that come in and watch and participate each and every time. So take the time to go to Facebook and then the George Espenlaub Show, and you can scroll down there and you can see all the videos that we have done in the past, and you can even be updated as to what's coming in the future. Wow, we've got so much going on here. It just makes my head spin. Seriously, we'll get involved in a project, and we'll get that particular project done that leads us into something else that we have to do before we do something else. Sometimes we get so overwhelmed that we just have to sit down, kick back, take a deep breath, and figure out, okay, where are we at? What are we doing? What's our purpose? And where are we going? We have so much going on. Hopefully in the near future, we are going to have an app for the Android system and for the iOS system that you can download for free on your device. One click and you're in, and you'll be listening to it. We are picking up more programming as we are going along the way, and I hope that you enjoy these programs that we're putting on. We're going to start a lot of music segments during the day to help get you through your work day, whether you're on the construction site or in the office or in a vehicle or driving down the road in the big 18-wheeler or whatever or wherever you're at. We are going to start some tremendous music segments to get you through today, intermixed with some other things. So we'll be broadcasting throughout the day, into the evening, so on and so forth. We need your support, your continued support. Please support us. Go to our Facebook page, The George Espenlaub Show. Like and follow us. It means so much to us when new people come on and like and follow us. So please do that for us, and we will keep you posted of everything that is going on here on the George Espenlaub Show. I'm going to take you now into a very important live stream that we had Friday afternoon entitled The Battle Rages. with Christina Laster and Mr. Ed Temple. I hear a horn beep. Was that you, Ed?
No.
No?
I don't think.
Maybe that was somebody here at the Funny Farm. I hear a horn beep. Uh-oh, we got a big echo.
No, you're good. I'm just sharing it on Facebook.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, friends, Romans, and countrymen, thank you for giving us both of your ears this Friday afternoon. We have a Jim Dandy, that's Espenlaub, a Jim Dandy show scheduled for you. We have with us from San Diego, California, by the way of phone, Christina Laster. Christina, how are you doing?
I'm great. How are you guys doing today?
I'm doing good. And we have Mr. Ed Temple out of Columbus, Ohio. How are you doing, Ed?
The Bucks doing just great.
All righty. Friday afternoon at the Funny Farm. But a very, very serious discussion that we're going to have this afternoon. Before we go any further, we have to bring Dude on. So, ladies and gentlemen, here is Dude. And that is Dude. Christina, did you get to see Dude?
Hello.
Did you get to see Dude?
Yes.
We only make him
playing the drums.
Yes. We only make him work 30 seconds every time we go live. So he has the life of Raleigh here at the Funny Farm. Ladies and gentlemen, we have Christina by phone. Let me put her picture up here real quick. We have her by phone because she has had technical difficulties where she's located with her internet service. So we did the next best thing. We brought Christina on by the way of telephone, and hopefully the next time she comes on, we'll have her up on the screen. She's going to be
yes, that's my hope.
She's going to be a regular with us, and so hopefully we get this internet situation straightened out. But she'll be a regular with us, and she'll be on all the time with us, and we'll be discussing many, many, many things. I got to do one more thing before we get into this. It's my friends in Warren, Pennsylvania, from the White.
Providing a great cup of coffee and a better life for the blind and disabled. White King Coffee, because every cup makes a difference.
That, ladies and gentlemen, is White King Coffee. And you can go to Facebook, look them up, White King Coffee, and you can order coffee. They'll deliver it right to your house. Check them out. You'll like it. We get it here all the time. So, Miss Christina, may I ask you, what is happening in your world?
You know, the battle over our children's minds still rages on, and, you know, basically fighting for that quality education for those that are trapped in failing schools. And then me as a homeschool mom, you know, just maintaining my right to homeschool because we have to watch all angles of this thing. And it's an unrelenting battle for our children to be able to have their education in a way that is not corrupted.
I titled this thing this afternoon, "The Battle Rages On." Because, because it's interesting. As the school choice movement picks up momentum, so does the fight. Do you agree, Ed?
Oh, for sure. And I was going to ask Christina whether she was heading to South Carolina with the Powerful Parent Network.
Did you hear that, Christina?
A little bit. Can you repeat it for me?
Yeah, I was wondering whether you were going to join the Powerful Parent Network. I think that's the name of it. And where are they headed? South Carolina.
You can kind of relate. If it's Ed, hi Ed from sunny California.
Hello.
And though I couldn't hear him,
All right. He was asking you if you're going to join the Powerful Parent movement. I've been trying.
I am. It's like we are family, right? Mm-hmm. So their movement, other parent movements, I support all of the movement for our children, because what we're saying together in unison is this is our child, hands off our children, right? In negative ways, and using them just to fund the system, but not adequately providing education for them in that system. And what we're saying is that as parents, we have the fundamental right over our children to choose what's best for them. And so that's where you see the battle, the biggest, is that the pushback is the government thinks they know what is best for our children. And we're saying as parents, no, our voices cannot get eliminated from this conversation, and our voices cannot be snuffed out. As a matter of fact, any plan that you guys come enact should include our purview as parents, because these are our children. But what you typically are finding is the very opposite, right? And so I support the parent movement across this nation that are standing up, fighting back, and saying enough. The system has failed, and here is where we draw the line.
Weren't you just at a Powerful Parent movement thingy yesterday or the last couple of days?
So I travel across California, and that actually was not one of the parent movements, but what you're talking about. But every week I go across California and basically educate parents as far as what their rights are. The webinar was one of those things, the ways that I do that. Also, hear what the students are saying, so that their voices are triangulated into this discussion too, because by the time you're in high school, you understand what's going on with you, and you understand the way you've been treated. And so we can't discount the voice of the students, right? And then, just going into broken, failed, and we're talking generationally failed communities to restore hope. That's what I do. And so having the right to choose what's best for your life and your child, that brings hope. When you're stuck in failure and someone's constantly got their foot on your neck, that's not hope. And so how do we find ways to have that true freedom? Education is one of those modes of being able to have access and opportunity. And so, that's what I do. And so when you see me in other places, like the picture that you showed, it's out of the need to bring awareness and an action plan, an executable plan of what are we as parents, we the people, going to do about this.
Ed, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think, first off, it's nice to, to have folks that are actively involved in this. Christina is very actively involved. There are others that are doing similar things, like I mentioned the Powerful Parent Network. I just wish that it was not, at least in the case of the Powerful Parent Network, they seem to only be interested in one political party. I just wish this was not a party issue. Instead, it was a kid issue. I understand their fight is for kids, but they're only barking up one political side, and that political side is not moving much. They're not moving the needle. Matter of fact, they are doing the opposite. They're doubling down on national television, and so that's clearly what their voice is not validated with the political party right now. So they need to maybe look for alternate means. There's a slew of parties that would love to have a voice. It doesn't have to be the Republican Party. It could be the Libertarian Party. It could be the Constitution Party. But instead of, it should not be a political football. It should be a universal. If they're always talking about universal rights, universal rights should start with the right of a child, and so we should be looking what's in their best interest.
Christina.
Yes.
Along those lines, I forget who I was talking to, what show it was. I don't know if it was radio or this one or last week, but whomever I was talking to, we were discussing the problems of different things. And, there is a simple solution, but what has happened, instead of us, when the problem occurs, instead of us nipping it in the bud, and you mentioned it just a few minutes ago about what was it? Come on, Espenlaub. Anyhow, it'll come to me. I hope. But instead of nipping it in the bud when it happened, when you said years and years and years of this mess, now where there's a simple solution in the center, there's all these obstacles that we have built up over the years because of this and that and all the other things involved. So instead of solving one simple problem, now we got to clear the forest out of all the debris and get things right again. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, it reminds me of Bill Tackett and the Truth Project, right? And so he talks about state sovereignty and how we have little by little handed over all of our foundational and fundamental rights to the state, and they've just become way too big. Entity that shouldn't be ruling over what's happening in our households, right? What's happening in this arena, that arena. And we can see that has totally been suffocating the education system. Parents' voices are snuffed out. The actual needs of the children aren't being met. And if the education system is designed to create good, quote unquote, state citizens, then what do you expect? And so what I teach parents is that they don't get another opportunity, and the state shouldn't have sovereignty over the realm of how they train up their children. That's just overreaching for government. And that is where you do need to stand up and fight back, right? Because these are our children. They only get one opportunity to be trained up during their childhood. They will spend 18 years as a child, but the rest of their life in adulthood. So what is that going to look like? Is that going to be state controlled? Are we creating robots here, right? I want my children to be able to have enough wisdom, knowledge, and understanding to be able to think independently without any kind of outside governmental force, basically exploiting that thought process or inserting or supplanting that thought process. And so, yes, we have allowed for the government to have control in areas, in spheres that they should not. And now it's time for us to, the people, one by one, all of us together, to say enough of that. This is where we draw the line. And people try to box this in as well. When it comes to kids, and this is why I love working for and serving for our children and generations. When it comes to kids, people try to box this in. Is that Democratic or is that Republican? No, this is humanitarian, right? What is happening with our children is a human dignity and respect, a respect for their lives and livelihood. It doesn't have anything else political attached to it. We're talking about the most vulnerable people in our population who are depending on us, who are totally dependent on us for everything. And how are we treating them? And what is our future going to look like if we're treating them bad here, right? And so I always talk about this from a humanitarian perspective first, because we need to respect that these are people, our children are people, human dignity and respect, and they deserved the best, not just crumbs and, other things thrown at them.
Ed, you posted something this morning. Our man Ed, Christina, he's always posting stuff. Between you two, you keep me busy all day long. Twitter, Facebook, and every time I turn around, you guys are posting something. But Ed, you posted something today, and forgive me if I sound like a babbling idiot, but maybe it'll strike a recall in your mind about the young people. So you posted something, and somebody wrote, the people from ages 18 to 25 are buying into this. Do you remember that? Or buying into
Yeah, I do. So, what I was getting at was that, it used to be in this country where if you were you would distance yourself from communists, and so now we have a particular candidate that is singing the praises. Now, I will admit that the other folks on the panel are that they're calling him on it, calling him to the carpet for it. But he's praising dictators and then turning it around, spinning it to that making the equivalence with the United States. So we have a gentleman that's running for president that clearly has antipathy towards his own country and is supporting communist dictators. And this guy here wants the government takeover of our health care as well as of our education system. Meanwhile, as a political party, they're saying the same thing. And this is where I have a real problem, because, I have tried over and over again to find just one politician, just give me one, that is a persuasion other than libertarian, Republican, or independent, that will put their voice out there and say unequivocally that they support school choice. And I have, inboxed and emailed and tried to call them out, and not one has shown any interest at all, which is shocking to me.
Let me say this, and then I'm going to play a little clip for you. But Christina, Ed, I had a gentleman on Wednesday. I think Ed was with us, out of New Jersey, and this whole issue has always riled me up. I've always been passionate about it, but since Wednesday, since I had our live stream with Lee McNulty out of New Jersey, I have been troubled. I mean, my spirit, I don't know any other way of describing it. My spirit is troubled. And I said all that to say this. There is this, and I put it up last time you was on, Christina, How to Create a Social State by Saul Alinsky. There it is. Take over the health care, keep poverty out there, debt, let it rise, gun control, welfare, education. And you said it a while ago, Christina, of how these schools have been failing for years. For years. It just didn't happen overnight, but they've been failing for years. Take control of what people read and listen to. Take control of what children learn in school. And then, consequently, over the years, and I believe this was a planned attack. Over the years, this is what we end up with. Do you agree with that or disagree with that?
You know, what I would like to say is we need to question our process of thinking as far as, are they really failing? Are they doing what they're designed to do, right? And what I mean by that is, if you create a system of uniform education, system of uniformity, right? That system cannot support every child's modality of learning, even if they try innovative ways of inserting what they call school choice as magnet, gate, and cluster AP programs. That's all fine and dandy, but there's going to be a large percentage of children that are neglected in that. What about the children with special needs, right? What about the children that have dyslexia, right? And I have my group of moms that I totally support with their movement about dyslexia and their FAPE violations. And then what about the gifted children who are overlooked and also overpunished, right? Where is the supports for that? It's like there's a chosen few that have access and opportunity, and everyone else just needs to sit in their chair for 6 hours a day. Well, I've done even extensive studies showing that boys, really are not meant to sit for 6.5 hours of a day in a seat trying to learn under the system of uniformity. And the reason why I did that was because, looking at my son and my grandson's experiences through the education system. And so people can also look at that. And I'm not, so there's going to be a level of bias for one, when we're talking about a system of uniformity. What is it that they're trying to create and control? And again, I call these good citizens, right? And then if I look at it from my purview as a Black woman, well, we didn't even enter into the education system until 1960s, right? Really formally, even though there was a court case that was done before in the 50s, but it was not actually adhered to until 10 years later, right? And what has that looked like for us for the whole 56 years? Well, it has looked like ultimate failure for the most part. We're talking about the masses. So is the traditional education system truly failing, or are they doing what they're intended to do? Is the real question.
Ed?
And so when you think about it that way, no, they're doing their job, which is to not create access and opportunity for all children, even though they say all children. And we need to be aware of what we can do to take back our rights as parents and educate our own children. And that's why I homeschool. So I can't really say they're failing. I'm saying that was pretty much their agenda from day one, and they're doing what they're supposed to do. But we need to be willing to say enough and create something that is meaningful and foundational and lasting. And school choice brings that hope. And that's why I support it.
Ed?
Yeah, she's spot on. The original model of the American education system was modeled after a military-type nation-state of Prussia. So it is definitely one that is more designed for people to fall in line and mass-produce education, and it's especially because of over-testing, which is the problem I have with the argument now in Ohio, for example. I know it's probably all across the country, but you're getting people that are saying, we need to stop school choice because those private schools don't have as many restrictions as we do. And my argument back would be, quickly, then you need to get less restrictions too, because you're failing. And restrictions create failure, because when you're overburdened with regulations and stipulations and testing, your school becomes studying for the test or preparing for a test rather than education. It becomes becoming a test taker, and that's not exactly conducive to having citizens that are able to think on their feet, to process information, and so on. So right now, the mass education system, because of over-testing, you have schools all over the country dropping their electives, which are give kids incentive to come to school, and those that are good at those electives are the better students in the first place. And so you're taking away all the incentives to come to school, and then you wonder why, that when they come to school, they're learning, that there's this theory that teaches them that there's no God and that evolution is a fact, and so therefore they're just another animal that has no soul, that they're purposeless, and then once they're taught they're purposeless, and there's no fun because you're supposed to sit in your chair and not get out. You're not supposed to move around. You're not supposed to learn how to build anything. You're just supposed to get out some sheets of paper and do a worksheet. And so, of course, kids don't look forward to coming to school. The over-testing and the overburdens are killing the school system. And besides that, the fact that the government schools have a monopoly on education. So they have a virtual monopoly. 88% of school students right now are stuck in public schools and largely failing public schools, and that number is supposed to increase as people are moving to cities more and more than moving, let's say, out into the rural areas. And so this number, unfortunately, unless something's done to alleviate it. Now, there's a lot of school choice momentum, but right now, like I said, you have a political party that's not willing to budge. Until we get that party to budge, or until people vote for an alternative candidate, ultimately the answer lies in our politicians, because, and I'm not talking about just nationally, even within local municipalities, we have way too many hands in the pot. Education should be a local issue and not somebody from the federal government telling the local community how to run their show. First off, it's unconstitutional, and it's backfiring because you can't have a one-size-fits-all as far as this nation goes, and as far as education goes. Some kids, they might want to become a plumber, and it's sticking them in a classroom to teach them about a non sequitur, class. It's maybe not the best thing for them. We have students maybe that they can't, they're not very good at whatever. Maybe they're great musicians, yet they only have one band class that they can attend. Because the classes are full, because they have to teach to the test. In the schools, for example, nowadays, they'll shut down to teach to the test. And so very little creativity in the classroom, because teachers have literally right now in Ohio, for example, they're trying to script education. They've started off with a course as a state course that if you teach it, it's scripted by the minute. And so that's the back door for one course. And now the biggest district in Ohio is deciding whether they're going to script all their courses. And so each teacher and each school will be teaching at the same time, the same amount of time, without any creativity at all. Scripted education, that's where they're headed.
Christina, you mentioned it. You approach parents and you approach students. What's some of the comments that you get or feedback that you get from parents?
And I want to really quick speak on the testing that Ed was talking.
Mm-hmm. Did we lose you? Christina, are you there? Hello.
Yeah, Ohio has been switching tests and taking away and adding more, and the whole testing system. There you go.
Okay.
My phone disconnected. So I wanted to really talk briefly about the testing and the criteria of teaching a test that Ed was talking about.
Mm-hmm.
It really it's a double-edged sword, because it depends on what I've been able to do and what we've been able to do is look at the testing in a way that it holds accountability, right? What is happening locally, statewide, and nationally to our students, and how much of a deficit are they at? But the lack of enforcement and accountability then is the problem as well, right? So you have where different modalities of learning are not supported. And you can see it actually through, there's some structural institutional issues that you actually can see reflected in the data that comes out of tests. That makes it a double-edged sword. Like, yeah, we don't like our kids being taught to test. Like, that's not okay. But here is the data again, and we see that, yeah, you guys are making progress, right? So that's what makes it kind of bittersweet. I'll just put it like that. When I talk to the children, what I found is that there were so many things happening to them that really school became the trauma for them. School became the trauma. It became this experience that, you know, kind of keeps them from wanting to be lifelong learners. Like, you become numb. Like, I just have to make it through the day. I just have to, you know, assimilate and do what is required of me, get home, go to sleep, and do this thing all over again. So when school becomes a trauma, and I hear this word being tossed around all the time, let's do trauma-based or trauma-informed teaching because there's multi-layers of things happening with the kids. No, how can you guys teach trauma-informed when you're the trauma? You're the trauma to the kids, right? Mm-hmm. And so that doesn't make sense. And, you know, it's like these aromatic words that you hear, trauma-informed. You're the trauma. Are culturally competent, but you're not culturally competent, right? And so it's like you might as well hear those words and think opposite. Oh, they're speaking in opposites today is what I see. And you can see it because the things that are promised and the things that are talked about, they are not trickling down to the kids. And I have this saying, if it ain't trickling down to the kids, then you're lying. And that's just the bottom line. And so other than seeing something tangible, it's deceptive at best. And that's why I tell parents, you know, if this is your child's experience, and every day when you drop your child off at school, their stomach is hurting, they're nail biting, they're literally pulling their hair out. When they come home from school, they're sick, and they got to do it all over again. And you see that child fundamentally change from what you knew they were created to be into someone else. Please don't take your kid back there. That's toxic, harmful, and deadly to your kid. You might as well equate that with a poison symbol, right? Like, do not enter. But robotically, people just drop their kids off every day and never think of another way, right? Like, who says that kids are only supposed to learn in a building for 6 hours a day and they're supposed to learn these items? Who says that, right? Mm-hmm. Who says that this is the way that it has to be? Who says that you have to go to college at 18 and graduate by the time, 4 years later? Where are these timelines coming from? Who established this precedent that sticks in our heads that we just traditionally and robotically do it? And is that freedom? And is that liberty? What is that? Because to me, it seems like we've been trained to participate and do certain things without a thought. And you need to be questioning, parents need to be questioning, why? Why do I need to do that? Is that my reality? Do I have to do that, right? And until then, we can change our own thought process about the government-run school and the traditional education system. We are going to be stuck and have our kids stuck in this failure, and it doesn't look like there's going to be any tangible good coming out for the masses.
Very well put. Very well put. Wow. I like that. What's your thoughts, Ed?
No, I definitely agree with the Christina's thoughts on accountability. Definitely has to be accountability. I think that what happens is, though, and of course I've been teaching since '97. It's fun, or actually a little bit before that if you count pre-professional teaching. But since then, it's every year there's an added test, or this test didn't work, and a whole new this and that, and an easier. And testing there needs to be some accountability, some testing for sure. But like for example, in high school, the ACT in Ohio is required for all 11th graders, and it's paid for by the taxpayer, which is fine, because that is a test that covers 4 different subjects, and if you add, you can actually do the writing, so it could be 5 subjects. So that's a great high school test, but then you have to turn around and they have all this complicated numbering system that you have to pass all these other different tests along the way as well, for just about every grade level. And what ends up happening is, in particular in the public schools, is they shut down. There's the public schools in Central Ohio, for Columbus, for example, they'll shut down in some cases for a month at a time just to teach to the test. So by the time it's all done, they have maybe 2 or 3 weeks of actual instruction, and then the rest is just preparing, going through and doing simulations of the test. And so that's not education. And so that, it should be, if you're teaching in class, if the instruction is good enough, the test should, the kids, when they take a test, it should require them to think, process information. That's real world. But as it is right now, oftentimes a lot of these tests are not measuring effectively, clearly. I mean, a kid graduates high school and they're turning around and they can't read or write. Well, that's definitely a problem. There should be, that should be a minimum standard. But, if Johnny can't read a table, a science table properly, but Johnny is an expert in math, I'm not going to be too upset, because guess what? I still can't read those science tables very well, and I have 3 degrees, okay? So the point is that, that we have to be, the over-testing can be overkill. On the other hand, schools must be accountable. Otherwise, you're graduating kids, and it reflects the system that when a kid is, leaves out, next thing you know, they're in remedial courses in college. So there definitely has to be a balance. But overbearing, that's why they need to, politicians probably once in a while might want to talk to the people on the ground level, like the teachers, instead of, them talking to each other. They might want to actually come in the classroom and have a conversation of, making things on a whim. Hey, we think we should add this test or that test, instead of, thinking it all the way through. Because I can tell you this, the schools that don't focus on testing are the ones that are producing much more effective students than the ones shutting down for testing. I can guarantee you that.
Christina, what are some of the things that the parents, when you approach these parents and tell them, look, you've got alternatives, what are some of the feedback? What are some of the feedback that you get?
For the most part, they're not informed about their alternatives, right? And they don't really know that these are viable options for them. And so I spend a lot of time in the grassroots and what I call the trenches, where I heard Ed say the politicians need to go talk to the teachers, where they need to really be focusing on what's happening on the ground level, what's happening with the rank and file that you're supposedly representing, right? And so they don't even really know about what their options are, how they can make those informed decisions, what would help their child to thrive and not just barely survive. And so that is when I spend time, not just telling them what their rights are as parents, but helping them to understand that they do have options, what that looks like. How can you get your child to, some of this is safety, right? We have safety issues where children are being harshly, excessively, punitively, and even abusively punished, You know, you can see it all across the nation. And so what I tell parents is, even if you look at the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, at the bottom of that pyramid is health, well-being, and safety, right? It is our job as parents to make sure that our children are first healthy, well, and safe. Okay. Then let's talk about ways that we can help them to learn and thrive in their acquisition of knowledge. And when you come from a foundational part of giving that type of awareness, what I find is, for the most part, the parents haven't even been able to secure the well-being and livelihood in the educational environment of their children. That's a problem. It is a problem in a place where I wouldn't even drop my cat off in some of these places, let alone a cage bird, right? And so, you know, it's that structural, harmful exploitation where you go in one way and you come out a way that you were never created or intended to be. And when I explain it that way, then everyone can connect and relate. And my next step is, let me help you first secure the well-being and safety of your child, the way, you know, and then let's look at viable options to do that, to continually do that. And never send your kid into a place where they're going to get abused, harmed, mistreated, neglected. Because if the government deemed that we were doing that to our kids, CPS or Child Protective Services would be banging down our doors. But we can drop them off to the government and allow them to, I mean, it's hypocrisy and blasphemy, right? And so the politicians have no desire to talk to people that are going to share real life experiences, such as the teachers that are, you know, having a difficult time in the educational environment. When they speak out, they basically need a whistleblower camp to protect them, because they get ostracized, isolated, segregated, you know, you name it. It happens every day. I know them. And the parents that are actually having these real life experiences that are harmful and detrimental to their children's livelihood, well-being, and safety. Talk about the way that you're going to educate them, right? And so when I see a pattern and a history of these things, you know that it's purposely happening. It's not by accident. And the politicians, instead of embracing and welcoming, and I can't say all of them because I don't want to throw a blanket statement like all are always or never, right? There are always good people in high places, but there's always wicked people in high places too. And so, you know, for the most part, they're doing their job by trying to snuff out the parents and the people that actually are speaking about right things. And that's what they do. And when Ed said they talk to each other, well, yeah, because that's what they do. But I'm looking for those people that are actually good and committed to human dignity and respect, that are actually going to do the right thing, right? Be hungry and thirsty for what's right, okay? And say that I'm going to be unrelenting and I'm going to oppose these people that are all around me, maybe trying to battle against me, but I'm going to do what's right for these kids, and I'm going to make sure that I make some generational decisions. And so when, you know, to answer your question, when we talk to the parents, I have not met a parent yet that doesn't understand that there is a systemic issue. But having and making an informed decision, it looks a little bit different depending on where you're at. In California, we have multiple options, but in other states where I speak to parents out of, they don't. And navigating through those options, I try to give them a what I call a GPS, right? Let me help you. I'm going to be a GPS. I'm not going to tell you what to do, but I don't want you taking all these long routes and side streets that's going to take way longer. Here is what you have available to you. So let me help you with that. And that's what I do.
I like that, Christina. You're a GPS. That's cool. I've never heard anyone explain it like that. Even Espenlaub can understand that. You put that right down on the bottom shelf. I appreciate that. Man, a GPS. She's a GPS. Now, here's what I want to see if I can group this all up here. We have politicians, teachers, parents, grandparents, guardians, children, and probably a whole host of other things. So here we got the whole ball of wax. There it is, right? The great big ball of wax. And around that ball of wax is all kind of stuff. Knitting and fuzz and anything else that can, this ball of wax. Instead of just being a ball of wax, you got a ball of wax surrounded by a whole bunch of other stuff. Anything that comes along is attracted to that ball of wax. It just leeches on there. With all this, do either one of you feel, and before I ask you that question, let me take you here. It'll only take you a second. Let me share this with you. This is a portion of the interview I had with Lee McNulty on Wednesday. This is what stuck with me and has really troubled me over the past several days. Let take a listen. It reminds me of. Now, I'm an old guy. I'm 71 and a half years old now. So I come from the old school. I tell the kids we used to go to school and our blackboard was the cave walls. They'd look at me like I got two heads. This is what it reminds me of. These teachers' unions, these administrators, the bureaucrats, and the list goes on and on and on. It reminds me like a bully in the schoolyard. I grew up in the city. I grew up in the schoolyard. And on any one given night when the weather was nice, you'd have 50, 60, 70 kids of all different ages hanging out in the schoolyard. That's where everything was settled. And yeah, you had bullies. They remind me of bullies in the schoolyard, where, they'll pick on the weak, they'll pick on the young, they'll pick on those ones that they can intimidate until someone hauls off and busts them right square between the eyes. I know that's not politically correct, but I'm not either. But somewhere along the line, somebody's going to have to dig their heels in. Or do you think that we're too far gone in the public school system to even begin to save it?
Yeah, I think we're too far gone because, again, it's all about statistics. It's all about students, and again, it's not all students. I don't want anybody to misunderstand that every student in the school I worked in was horrible. Absolutely not. Right. But it was just out of control where you get good kids turning into bad kids. But the bottom line is, with teachers, they're going to keep quiet. It's not like to dig their heels in and they know it's right and they know what's wrong. But for the most part, they have families. They have mortgages. They have bills. They got car payments. What are they going to do? Open their mouth and take a chance, and then all of a sudden foul up their family? Next thing you know, they're divorced. Just one thing after another. So they're going to keep quiet and do the best that they can.
Wow. That is that's some powerful stuff. Christina, I don't know if you got to hear much of that. Did you hear any of it?
Yes, I did. And he's spot on about the fact that the teachers don't really have the ability in some places and most places to speak out because that's their bread and butter, right? But, I would like to triangulate their experiences, the ones that connect with me. They are totally frustrated when trying to do the right thing. And I'm not saying all of them. I'm talking about the ones that want to do what's right and have been opposed, right? Mm-hmm. Trying to do the right thing and not being supported in doing the right thing. Getting told just to keep their mouths shut, right? Don't talk to the parents. If you have a problem, there's all kind of tricky ways that abuse of power takes place on full campuses, mandating that the teacher communicate only with the administration and when they know that this teacher is an advocate for children and parents, right? keeping them out of the loop on certain meetings so they won't speak up for the best interest of the kids. I've seen it all, even down to framing a narrative about them and punishing them, right? And at those times, I wonder, where is their union support now, right? And so what you see is not only structural, harmful exploitation that requires human capital, which is our children, that requires bodies for average daily attendance money, right? And but you also see a level of structural, harmful exploitation of teachers that are paying dues and not being supported, but yet are supporting something that they might not even actually believe in supporting, right? And so that's a whole nother subject. The Janice case supports the right for teachers to opt out of unions. And I'm sure that they will continue to get bullied and continue to get intimidated and continue to get threatened and harassed while trying to advocate on best practices for children. That's unfortunate, and it's an indictment against the traditional government-run schools.
Ed, your
because
thoughts?
You have teachers, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would agree. In the Janice case, even though it's supposed to give teachers the option to pull out of the union, what it does, effectively the way the unions have handled it is forcing teachers still to pay in. They just don't get the union benefits. So it's at least, and I can't speak for everywhere, but it hasn't worked out the way that the court, I'm sure, had planned for it. So there'll probably have to be another court case. But the bottom line is the way the union is they politicize everything. Everything is about supporting one political party only. It doesn't matter what the issue is. It doesn't really matter what the beliefs of the candidates are. As long as they're one political party, that's where all the money goes. And so that's the way it was since I started teaching. So that's it. There had never been at any time one non-Democrat that they put money towards. Every single candidate they put money towards was a Democrat, and as if that's the only way they could get any support. And so that's, that alienates a whole lot of people that do not want to support certain policies. And so that, of course, it disenfranchises really a whole lot of people. And so, of course, at that point, if your union doesn't support you, you're not going to speak out against anything, because with the union against you and then you taking that and the school system against you, you're in a no-win situation. So freedom of thought is squashed in the public schools if you're a teacher. If you're coming from the left perspective, you're just fine. You can do anything you want pretty much. Literally, there's people that have committed crimes and you can keep your job. On the other hand, if you are on the other side of the fence, or in the middle even, you're in trouble if you let anybody know. And you'll be railroaded out of the school system in a heartbeat. And so that's the way the system is. As a matter of fact, when they have trainings for teachers, that's precisely they let them know ahead of time, this is the name of the game. This is how we're playing it. If you don't agree with it, so be it. But you're going to find yourself in trouble. And they've been doing that ever since, like I said, I started teaching. So this is just kind of a spooky situation right now. You might as well say the teachers' union literally adopted the Communist Manifesto. And I don't mean that lightly. I mean literally. I've read the Communist Manifesto, and I've read the union constitution. It's nearly identical. And so it's pretty scary.
I'm not a big Voltaire or Voltaire fan. It's dangerous to be right in matters on which the established authorities, think about this, folks, on which the established authorities are wrong. Think about it. Let that sink in for a little while. The reason I played that clip, guys, was because since Lee said that, I have been troubled. Now, I mentioned the ball of wax and then everything that gets all stuck to it and intertwined and wrapped up. And we've got a real mess I mean, I don't know how to put it. I'm not a pessimist, but and I believe you can get out of something. But Christina, we got a real mess in this country.
I agree. And, really the ultimate freedom is by each person activating their right to choose, right? Mm-hmm. That's freedom. And collectively, what will that look like? It might look small, like, okay, I'm just one person. But if every person says, I no longer choose to be in failure, and I no longer choose to allow you to fail me, so I'm going to do X, Y, Z, right? Then that creates a collective action that looks a little bit different. It's not just the one person in the West Coast or the one person in the South. And it's very hard for people to envision true freedom and true liberty when someone has their foot on their neck, okay? And so how do you do that? How can let me go, and then I can be truly free. But there's always a way to continue to battle effectively, but you have to get the foot off your kids' necks. And I say, don't send them into failure, systemic, oppressive failure, where they're not even coming out who they were created and intended to be. And that's why for a while I was saying, where are all the Quakers and abolitionists? Because, I don't want to talk to the politicians, right? I'm looking for people that are actually talking about real freedom, human dignity, respect, not a certain party, because I'm talking about children and they don't know party lines unless you've told them about it before. But they're coming in expecting for their well-being and livelihood to be fed, to be nurtured, to be loved, to be taught. And if we don't get this right, we'll be a whole bunch of older people, me, I'm 42, watching generations of just, what is the nation going to look like? Mm-hmm. What is their generation going to look like? How are they going to be able to even defend themselves without wisdom, right? And so it's really headed toward that direction, and I don't know what else to say besides take control of your individual situation, and together that will create collective action.
Ed?
I think that was as well as you can say it. The bottom line is we need to, it should not, kids in their education should not be a political issue at all. And it should be common sense that we should stand for school choice. I think part of the issue is that we have to change the dynamics. I think public schools, they say when you want school choice, they say you're taking money from us. Well, that's under the premise that it's their money to begin with. It's the taxpayers' money. It's not their money. You have to earn, the taxpayers' money by providing a service. And when that service is a bad service, like anything else, the money should be diverted or shifted to a place that's actually going to serve the kid. In some cases, in every study, Corey DeAngelis works for the Cato Institute, and what his research has said is that, not just his research, but peer-reviewed research, we're talking of thousands and thousands of students, is that school choice benefits the student and the school that has been introduced to competition. These schools benefit, the kids benefit, the crime rate drops, the graduation rate increases, the scores increase for everybody involved as a whole. So there's no argument against school choice. It actually literally saves the school districts money when they haven't been introduced to school choice. And overall, one of the other fears the union should not fear, which they do fear, is losing, at least the union members, the salaries literally for teachers when they're introduced to school choice, they actually increase. And so all the hidden fears dissipate, and the benefit is overwhelming. And so there's no argument against school choice. And the politicians know it because they send their kids to private schools. And so we all know it. Everybody, it's just common sense. It's a matter of beating the resistance.
Wow. Christina, Ed, been a delight. I get to sit at the feet of two teachers, and they educate me. That's I know that's not good English, but that's an Espenlaub word. They educate me.
Always a pleasure with you guys too.
And listen, Christina will be back. She's going to come back bi-weekly, every other week, and hopefully the next time you come back, Christina, your internet will be up and firing off.
Oh yes, definitely. I am very excited, anticipating the moment where it's fixed. Thank you.
I'll bet you are. We have so much to discuss in the coming weeks and months, and all those good things. I got some things up here. If they stay up here, I just can't find them sometimes. That's why I have to write things down so quick. But I've got some things up here that I'm working on for you guys to see if you'd be interested in doing. And I think our audience would just love doing some of those things with us. So, Christina, it's been a delight. Thank you so very, very much. We'll stay in touch like always, and we'll plan for the next episode. Ed, thank you. And we will constantly be in touch. Sometimes Ed and I are like two old ladies at a quilting party. More so me, more so me than Ed. I'll talk his ear off sometimes. But every time I get off the phone, I think, man, I talked that poor man's ear off. Now, don't do that next time, Espenlaub. The very next time, I'm right back at it. But we'll all keep in touch. Keep posting them things, guys. Keep people informed.
Definitely.
And let us all know. And ladies and gentlemen, get Ed's book, Escape from Uncle Sam's Plantation. It is a delight to read. It is common sense. Common sense. That's what it is. Common sense. You can get it at Amazon.com. Amazon.com. Ed Temple, Escape from Uncle Sam's Plantation. Wow. Thank you, guys. Love you both.
Appreciate it. Take care.
We got some good things coming down the road. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, friends, Romans and countrymen, join me tonight on the radio. Zach Day out of Mississippi. We had him on several months ago. He'll just rock your socks right off your feet, I'm telling you. He'll be live on the radio with us tonight at 8 p.m. That's 8 p.m. Eastern Time. He just cut some new songs, put together another EP, and he's coming on, and he's going to introduce us tonight. It's almost like we got the exclusive, so he'll be on with us at 8 p.m. tonight, Zach Day. So, we'll post something up on the Facebook show page, and you can bounce off of that onto the radio show tonight. So thank you so very, very much for being with us. Start those watch parties. Get this thing out there, one person at a time. One person at a time. Listen to it again, watch it again, and I know it'll touch the very marrow of your soul. So, wherever you're at, if it's nighttime, have a great night. If it's daytime, have a great time. Or day, have a great day. If it's somewhere in between, whatever it is, I just pray that you'll be blessed. But wherever you're at, whatever time it is, remember these things. Love one another, be kind to one another, pat somebody on the back, smile at them, and don't ever be afraid to say, I love you. It could actually save a life. I trust that God will keep you right in the center of his hand. And until next time, see you later, everybody. I hope that you enjoyed that. It was a delight listening to it again. If you would like to see that, you didn't get to see it the first time, just go to Facebook